The Yubel Archetype originally started out as just 3 cards used by Yubel in the anime. These cards were Yubel, Yubel Terra Incarnate, and Yubel the Ultimate Nightmare. They were released together in the 2008 set Phantom Darkness, alongside other cards used by Yubel in her final duels. All of the Yubel monsters shared the same properties of being a dark attributed fiend monster with 0 attack, 0 defense, and heterochromatic eyes. The cards' designs are all based on the Yugioh GX character of the same name, Yubel, who was once a human that had been transformed into a guardian spirit to watch over the one who would wield the gentle darkness, eventually to be corrupted and serve as one of the primary antagonists of the Yugioh GX series. The way the Yubel cards worked is that they were a reflection of Yubel's philosophy. The cards would violently evolve over the course of a duel into more powerful forms whenever they would be destroyed. In conjunction to this, they would also deal damage to the opponent whenever they were attacked. The reason for these specific abilities is all to do with Yubel's philosophy. This is because Yubel truly believes that suffering for the one you love is the truest form of love. This lesson was taught to her after she was sent away by Jaden, ultimately coming to the twisted conclusion that this punishment was Jaden's way of showing his love to her. And because of this masochistic outlook, it became reflected in her card effects. For you see, all 3 of the Yubel forms can be destroyed by battle. The wielder takes no battle damage from battles involving them. The 2 upgraded forms can only be summoned by the previous Yubel effects. The original Yubel has the unique effect that before damage calculation, when this face-up attack position card is attacked by an opponent's monster, inflict damage to your opponent equal to that monster's attack. The cost to keep this monster is that during your end phase, 1 monster must be tributed to keep her on the field. If Yubel is destroyed, then Yubel Terra Incarnate is summoned from the hand, deck, or grave to the field. Terra Incarnate's unique effect is, before damage calculation, when this face-up attack position card is attacked by an opponent's monster, inflict damage to your opponent equal to that monster's attack. The cost to keep this monster on the field, however, is that during your end phase, all other monsters on the field are destroyed. If Terra Incarnate is destroyed, then the final form is summoned, Yubel the Ultimate Nightmare. Its unique effect is that if this attack position card battles an opponent's monster, inflict damage equal to that monster's attack to the opponent, and destroy that monster. As you can see, this monster loves to be hurt by being attacked, and by doing so, it hurts the opponent back equally. Now, with all this in mind, the problem with the Yubel cards is that, well, she has to be merged with another deck to even make her playable. And since the 2 lower forms have to be attacked to deal damage, it's really hard to make a game-winning deck out of these monsters. That is, however, until fast forward nearly 15 years, and a brand new pack called Phantom Nightmare has just come out. What a fitting homage for Yubel's return to form. In this pack would be some brand new upgraded Yubel monsters, along with some new and improved upgrades of the original forms, as well as new support cards based on cards Yubel used in her duels. With these new cards, you can pull off some pretty incredible combos, like forcing all your opponent's monsters into attacking your Yubel for an insta-win in their battle phase, or how about fusing with their entire field and forcing them to attack into your new Ultimate Yubel Fusion form. Or even better, let's put a big monster on the opponent's field for them, so that when we attack into it, not only are we doing hefty damage, but thanks to its effect, we'll get some extra life points all in one go. So, after that little taster, how about we take a look at all the brand new Yubel cards? Starting first with Spirits of Yubel. Cannot be destroyed by battle. You take no damage from battles involving this card. If this card is destroyed, you can special summon one of your Yubels that is banished or in your hand, deck, or grave. When an opponent's monster declares an attack, you can special summon this card from your hand. If this card is special summoned, you can add to your hand or set one spell or trap from your deck that mentions Yubel. This monster is not only the superior retrained version of the original Yubel form, but is also a clever homage to the symbol of Jaden's deck, Elemental Hero Neos.
ユウギさん、 あなたのデッキの象徴がブラックマジシャンなら、俺のデッキの象徴、それがエレメンタルヒーロー Neos.
More specifically, based on her name and appearance, it's not Elemental Hero Neos she's based on, but Elemental Hero Spirit of Neos. Now, it's worth mentioning that the original Yubel's artwork was censored, but not in a way you might expect, as the OCG and TCG have identical designs. However, it is with the anime to OCG designs that has received a change. For you see, the monster was given a grey skin suit to cover more of her body. And of course, the dubbed version of the anime was censored too, by adding more coverings to the design too. That's not the only censorship to the anime though. The nature of Yubel's gender is brought up often when discussing the character, and though at the end of the day, doesn't really matter since it's not integral to the story, it is worth taking a second look at how the dub and sub differ in Yubel's portrayal. For instance, in the original Japanese, Yubel in human form speaks with an androgynous tone, but is referenced with the male Japanese pronoun of boku. After transforming, Yubel's body is split with male and female features. Yubel also has two differing voices in this form that alternate between a male and a female voice.
10代君の心がやっと僕に届いた In
this form, Japanese Yubel would continue to use male pronouns when describing themselves, with other characters throughout the series addressing Yubel as both a male and a female. The takeaway from this is it is made very unclear intentionally, as this means Yubel should be considered 50% male and 50% female, to possibly reference something from Hinduism called Ardhana Rishvara, which was where two Hindu deities combined together to become a deity that was half male and half female, equally split down the middle. In conjunction, the international dub, however, doesn't seem to know what it wants to do with Yubel, since instead, the dub has Yubel in the past speak with a male-sounding voice.
Please, my king, let that person be me.
Then, after transforming, it becomes distinctly female.
And when our names are called, we will fight the waves of chaos and save the world.
From this point, throughout the entirety of the series, Yubel is referred to as a she. As well, her design is altered, so her male side's pectoral is replaced with a female breast. So yeah, those were the alterations between Japanese Yubel and dub Yubel. Now, while we'd only get one Yubel main deck upgrade, to modernize the archetype, we would have to get some extra deck versions of these cards. And since Yubel seems to love fusion, she's got some new fused forms. The first is from when Yubel was weak, when she first appeared. In this form, she appeared as an ethereal form of herself, sporting a draconic hand. This weakened version of her is depicted in the card Phantom of Yubel. It requires one Yubel monster plus one fiend monster with 0 attack and defense. It must be special summoned from the extra deck by shuffling the above cards from your hand, field and or graveyard into the deck or extra deck. It cannot be used as a fusion material. It cannot be destroyed by battle. Also, you take no battle damage from battles involving this card. When your opponent activates a monster effect, quick effect, you contribute this card. That effect becomes your opponent destroys one Yubel monster in their hand, deck, or field. You might have noticed this monster is summoned via an even more powerful form of Contact Fusion, which of course was a signature summoning style of Jaden Yuki's Neospatian monsters. Not only that, but since this monster is a precursor to Yubel's true form, it's only fitting then that thanks to her final effect, she is able to get out a true Yubel monster because of it. In fact, on the topic of fusing, a big aspect of Yubel's character is that she wanted to unite the 12 dimensions together so that she could forever merge herself with Jaden as a true bond of suffering. Because that makes sense, right? Anyway, thanks to this, super polymerization itself is effectively an integral part of the archetype. Super polymerization, for those that don't know, is the ultimate fusion card. It was made by sacrificing a bunch of people, so it should be good, right? Well, it is. It can't be responded to in any way, shape, or form, meaning you can't stop it once it's started. By activating it, what can you do? Well, you can fuse with monsters on both sides of the field, and because of that, you can make the new Yubel Ultimate Monster. Yubel, the Loving Defender Forever, requires one Yubel monster plus one or more effect monsters on the field. Yes, you heard that right. If your opponent has a full field, you can merge with all of them. However, I wouldn't recommend that. I'd always leave one. Why? Well, let's take a look at her effects. This card is fusion summoned. You can inflict 500 damage to your opponent for each fusion material used for its summon. Cannot be destroyed by battle or card effects. You take no battle damage from battles involving this card. If this card battles on an opponent's monster, at the end of the damage step, inflict damage to them equal to that monster's attack, and if you do, banish it. This monster is of course the superior retrained version of Ultimate Nightmare. However, it's not just that. It also shares many aesthetics and similarities with elemental hero Flame Wingman and Infernal Rage. Flame Wingman was Jaden's favorite monster, so Yubel, I think she's a little bit jealous and she also wants to be considered one of her favorites, which is referenced a little bit later in another card. We'll get to that in a bit.
My favorite card, Elemental Hero, Flame Wingman.
However, if we look at the name of Yubel, Loving Defender Forever, that is a reference to how Yubel will protect Jaden forever, just like how she had done so for his previous life as the Supreme King. It's also another nod to how Jaden fused himself with Yubel together. This is actually referenced in a later card we're going to look at, which depicts the moment that these two fused together, and ironically is the perfect card to use to make this monster. Now, Yubel had some interesting monsters in her arsenal that she used in her final duels. Awesomely, they have all gotten upgraded archetypal retrains that help support the Yubel playstyle. Let's take a look at these, shall we? Starting with the original forms and then seeing what they upgrade into. Grinder Golem must be first special summoned from your hand to your opponent's side of the field by special summoning 2 Grinder tokens in face-up attack position on your side of the field. If you special summon this monster, you cannot normal summon or set a monster during the same turn. Grinder Golem has been upgraded into Geist Grinder Golem. Its effect is you can only special summon Geist Grinder Golem once per turn. You can reveal one Yubel monster in your hand, special summon this card from your hand to your opponent's side of the field. Then you can special summon the revealed monster to your field. Once per turn during damage calculation, if this card battles a Yubel monster, your opponent gains 3000 life points. If you special summon Yubel while this card is in your graveyard, you can special summon this card to your opponent's field. If you're keeping track with this monster on your opponent's side of the field, if you attack into it, it will give you 3000 life points. And you'll do 3000 damage if it's Yubel attacking it and everything, which is pretty cool. To clarify what these monsters are for, it's simply about putting a big monster onto the opponent's side of the field that you actually have something to wail into if your opponent's not bothering to put any monsters on the field, which could be considered a weakness to Yubel Archetype. So luckily, we have a monster to sort that out. Next up, we have Samsara Lotus. Its effect was during your end phase, if you control no spell or trap cards, you can special summon this card from your graveyard in face-up attack position. This card's controller takes 1000 damage during each of their standby phases. Samsara Lotus has been upgraded into Samsara D-Lotus. Its effect is you contribute this card, special summon one Yubel monster from your deck. During your opponent's turn, when a monster effect is activated while you control a Yubel monster, quick effect, you contribute this card. The activated effect becomes destroy one Yubel monster on the field. During your end phase, if you control Yubel and this card is in your graveyard, you can add this card to your hand or special summon it. The point of these monsters for the Yubel archetype is simply that if you've got the original Yubel on the field and you need to play a tribute cost, well, you can just bring back one of these during the end phase, tribute it, and you've paid the cost. Pretty cool. Grave Squirmer. Its effect is if this card is destroyed by a battle and sent to the graveyard, target one card on the field, destroy that target. Grave Squirmer is upgraded into Infernal Grave Squirmer. If you control a fiend monster, quick effect, you can special summon this card from your hand. Then you can destroy one monster you control that is Yubel or mentions it. You can banish this card from your graveyard, special summon one fiend monster with 0 attack and defense from your hand or graveyard, except Infernal Grave Squirmer. What's the point of these monsters? Well, it is simply a very easy way to destroy your Yubel monster if you want to upgrade it into its next form. Moving on to the spells and traps, the first card we're going to talk about is a card that I used to really like, and I always try to make it work, but it's just too slow, and it takes good cards out of your deck, and if you don't get them in time, the card anyway is Spell Chronicle. Its effect is activate this card by sending your entire hand to the graveyard. Banish 5 spells/traps from your deck. Each time your opponent activates a spell card, place 1 Chronicle counter on this card. You can remove 2 Chronicle counters from this card. Your opponent chooses one card banished by this card's effect for you to add to your hand. If this face-up card in the spell and trap zone leaves the field, you take 500 damage for each card currently banished by this card's effect. It's been a while since I've heard that effect. I've kind of forgot that you had to get rid of your entire hand to use this ability. It's not great. Spell Chronicle has been upgraded into Mature Chronicle. Its effect is each time a Yubel monster and or a monster that mentions Yubel is special summoned, place 1 Chronicle counter on this card. You can remove up to 5 Chronicle counters from this card you control to activate one of these effects. 1 counter, special summon 1 Yubel from your grave. 2 counters, add one of your banished cards to your hand. 3 counters, banish 1 card from your deck. 4 counters, destroy 1 card on the field. 5 counters, add 1 Super Polymerization from your deck to your hand. The main point of these cards in the original series, and pretty much now, is basically that final effect. That final effect of adding a Super Polymerization from the deck was what this card was used for in its original form in the anime. With this, it's basically it. Get Super Polymerization, merge with your opponent's monsters, win the duel. Finally, we have some brand new cards to support the deck. Starting first with the field spell, Nightmare Throne. When this card resolves, you can take 1 Fiend monster with 0 attack and defense from your deck and either add it to your hand or destroy it. Once per turn, if a face-up Yubel monster you control leaves the field by card effect, you can add to your hand 1 of your Yubel monsters that is banished or in your deck or graveyard, and is 1 original level higher or lower than one of those monsters that left the field. Then you can special summon the added monster, ignoring its summoning conditions. This card is referencing the throne that Yubel sits on in the different dimension. Nightmare Pain. During your main phase, you can destroy 1 dark monster in your hand or face up on your field, and if you do, add 1 Yubel or 1 card that mentions it from your deck to your hand, except Nightmare Pain. While you control any Yubel monsters, all opponent's monsters must attack them if able. Your opponent takes any battle damage you would have taken from battles involving your Yubel monsters instead. Nightmare Pain is a reference to the effect name of when Yubel forces the opponent's monster into attacking it, and Nightmare Pain's ability is what the anime abilities of the original Yubels had, where it just forced the opponent's monsters to attack into it as well. And this is one of the biggest win conditions of this deck. You have this live, your opponent enters the battle phase, and then you make your big monster and you make them all attack it. It's kind of cool. Eternal Favorite. Once per turn, you can activate one of these effects. Special summon 1 of your Yubel monsters that is banished or in your graveyard. Neither player can activate cards or effects when it is special summoned. If you control Yubel, discard 1 card, then send this face-up card from your spell and trap zone to the graveyard. Fusion summon 1 fusion monster from your extra deck, using monsters from either field as a material, including a Yubel monster. I'm sure you picked them on it straight away. Eternal Favorite is basically a Super Polymerization, but in Archetype version. Obviously, you can respond to this one, but it's really cool. The artwork itself is a reference to when Yubel and Jaden fused with Super Polymerization.
2つの魂は1つになってもう決して離れることはないんだね。僕は今君の愛と力に包まれている。共に戦おう。宇宙を破滅に導く光の波動と。
And this card's name of Eternal Favorite could be a reference to how, in the anime, while Elemental Hero Flame Wingman is Jaden's favorite card, Yubel will essentially be his eternal favorite forever. In fact, speaking of the anime, there's 2 wacky Yubel cards we haven't mentioned. In the duel between Jaden and the Darkness, when the Darkness stole Yubel from Jaden, Jaden used Super Polymerization to fuse all 3 of his spirit monsters together. Elemental Hero Neos, Yubel, and he discarded his wing Karibo in order to use the effect. This combination created Neos Wise Man, whose effect is he cannot be normal summoned or set, must be special summoned from your hand by sending 1 face-up Elemental Hero Neos and 1 face-up Yubel you control to the graveyard, and cannot be special summoned by other ways. This card cannot be destroyed by card effects. At the end of the damage step, if this card battled an opponent's monster, inflict damage to your opponent equal to the attack of the monster it battled, and you gain life points equal to that monster's defense. You can see in the background of this card's artwork references to both Yubel and Neos that make up this monster's art. However, this monster will be criticized heavily by Yu-Gi-Oh players, as to get this monster out, it would require you to have Yubel on the field, Neos on the field, and this card in your hand, making it a very awkward monster to get out. The solution to this would have been just to make it a fusion monster. Problem solved. And 10 years later, they would solve this with the monster Elemental Hero Neos Krieger. Requires Elemental Hero Neos and Yubel. Must be fusion summoned. Before damage calculation, if this card battles an opponent's monster, you can inflict damage to your opponent equal to the opponent's monster's attack. If this face-up card you control is destroyed by battle or leaves the field because of an opponent's card effect, you can special summon one Neos Wiseman from your hand or deck, ignoring its summoning conditions. You can only use this effect of Elemental Hero Neos Krieger once per turn. And with that, that is the new and improved Yubel archetype done. Want to watch Yubel in action? I have a video right here. Or perhaps you'd rather watch this one right here, where you can do that if you want to. Hope you all enjoyed this video, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Catch you later. Bye, everyone.